my god. I'm live. I'm live after so many months. So many months of absence. Would you look at that? Cool. So I am back for my Vipassana retreat. Now, to say that I'm back from my Vipassana retreat is not it's not honest, right? Because whenever you say you've been to a Vipassana retreat, you're kind of saying I spent the whole 10, 12 days in some obscure place in the middle of nowhere where an expatriate is lecturing a hall of misguided pseudo-spiritual people. Now, I don't doubt that there's some genuine people in there. I don't doubt that there's some people who are truly spiritual. And the point isn't to make a mockery of anyone or anything. But at times it did feel that absurd. And I might be repeating the words that I'm saying because the way that Goenka says everything, the end of his phrases always end with a reiteration of what was last spoken to emphasize. Okay, whatever. It was frustrating. I did not complete the whole 10 days. So I can't say that I really went to a Vipassana retreat. I took a taster. Took a sample. Went there for 5 days. Really, it was 4 days total of time because they count the first day, even though it's just a dinner and the introductory meditation. And then I left halfway through the 5th day. But yeah, it's not entertaining. It's barely helpful. And you might be thinking, okay, what is this guy, 23 years old, by the way. You know, you probably didn't know this, but now you know. 23 years old. Why is he speaking on spirituality, on Vipassana, so critically? Why is he speaking on a practice so critically, as if he knows, if he's a knower? It doesn't take spirituality to understand what you're trying to accomplish, and it does actually take a lot of critical thinking, a lot of critical analysis, a lot of objective analysis, ironically, to kind of recognize that this practice, this experience Okay. Anyway, like, viewing critically, experiencing and analyzing half of a Vipassana retreat and coming in with beforehand a whole bunch of knowledge, right? On what meditation is supposed to accomplish, the concept of enlightenment, different psychological states, yap, right? It's kind of crucial to understand that you can come into these things knowing more than the teacher, right? I think this applies very broadly. Just in general in life, there's a lot of value. There's a lot of clarity in intuition, in your own understanding, in your own experiences, and the conclusions that your own intellect in isolation come up upon. But that's not what's important, right? I'm speaking in circles to say that this experience sucked. One, because I was not I was not there for the reason that other people were probably there. The kind of situation that people find themselves going to this retreat for is like being a disheveled husband who is not happy with their career, work-life path, whatever the fuck, and is silently in a roundabout way searching for meaning, searching for something, searching for some peace, something to give them clarity about their situation, for which they're unhappy about and they can't even articulate because they're anhedonic. They're anhedonic. Then, you know, you've got a prim, prissy lady, or ladies, who, you know, they have money, they have free time, they're a free spirit, so to speak. And, you know, they're just looking for an experience. They want to say that they're spiritual, have a spiritual experience. Nothing wrong with that. That shit's legit. There's, you know, there's new age spirituality. There's, it's called productivity, right? Biohackers, whatever the fuck. This same kind of like archetype of person has always existed, but, you know, a young person looking for mental clarity that exists. There are a lot of easily identifiable types of people from different backgrounds that are all there for a different reason, and it's not enlightenment. So what is the point? Oh shit. My bad, man, my bad. Okay, well, if they do that. MB. There's a lot of people that are going to these things and it's just fucking... It's not for enlightenment. Right? So what is the point? I promise I'll get to some semblance of a point, but I'm just gonna have to keep spitting these things out. Until I get to the point that I want to make. Wow. Flash W on the Timo. Cool. Really, I think the best way to go about this is just spew out whatever thought. I know it's gonna sound fucking schizophrenic as fuck, but you guys will get the point. there are people there who aren't there for enlightenment, and it shows. And I'm kind of partially thinking that it has some influence on how the course is played out, though fundamentally it's flawed because, well, I mean, you have a deceased teacher. I think Goink is dead. You have a deceased teacher, so already there's a bit of a distance. You can't. You can definitely reach enlightenment without a degree of intimacy, necessary intimacy. But I think for the modern mind, it's not feasible, it's not correct. Dude, I skipped the camp early just for that. But they're fucking shitting the bed that bad. Thankfully, Yi overstayed like a fucking low elo individual. Holy fuck. Bit of a tangential thought, but it's still related. It just had me thinking about how a lot of shit. Goofball. You got him. He kind of smurfed on me. I'm not gonna lie. Damn, that sucks. No way he gets away with that, right? Wow. It's gonna be a problem. I think I'll just speak on my experience, right? The reason I left is because, counter to what is expected of a student during this kind of retreat, I just kept thinking. It was very difficult to return my attention to my breathing, to my, the sensations. The whole concept of Vipassana is it's to prepare yourself for Vipassana. You do an exercise that requires breathing. Taking your attention to your breath, a simple, unbelabored breath. There's just no way. In order to sharpen your awareness, yes, this does work, yes, this is the thing, yes, there's a scientific basis for this. Once you do that, you go from being aware of the breath to being aware of the sensations within a small area of the face around the nose, making you more perceptive. The word they use is sensitive, but I think that's somewhat dangerous, but it's also true, but it's making you more perceptive. Once you do that, it makes you more perceptive of sensations in the body in general, because you're working that sensory faculty of the mind. Whenever you do that, you become more aware of subtle sensations within the mind, and in doing so, you can reach enlightenment, you can reach truth, you can reach intuitive conclusions that are correct about life, yada yada yada. But I was thinking a lot of things. One, I was thinking, okay, one, I don't want my mind to be silent during a period of my life, or, within a body, with a soul, with a mind that is capable of so much, that has so much to offer, that has a lot of talents to express and hasn't had the chance to express it yet. I'm too young to be enlightened in the traditional sense. And that's not even touching on the topic of what enlightenment is, how the concept expresses itself or appears in the modern age, and so much more. And my qualms from this not only came from being pestered by the course manager more so than everyone else, because I couldn't sit still, which wasn't even the full truth, but the course seemed so lazy, it was so hands-off, and it was just at the wrong period of my life. My brain and body are too sensitive. Let me tell you, after the third day, I actually tried Vipassana, because you kind of hinted at what it was at the last lecture. So I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'll hardcore try it. And my body rebounded to better function, but then because it's already so sensitized by shit, no shutdown for me. Worry about defending my bottom camp, so I can just go take this raptors, do scuttle, probably gain top. That's the plan. Alright. Now, despite the fact that I'm disregarding what the teachings imply, after the third day is that I became so sensitized that the whole point of the practice was lost upon my impulses to the point where I couldn't control them. So at the fourth day, it would take me like probably a solid 30 minutes between each, I guess, mind wandering moment. This Leona is so reportable. Deadass, deadass, deadass. Deadass! I mean, what? I'm not so good. Big wave right here, man. If you don't want to get it, I'll take it. Cool. But after experiencing 30 minutes of lull between each return of awareness to the breath, I couldn't help it. I was like thinking, okay, clearly this practice is not what it sells itself to be, because you're basically trying to fast track enlightenment by finding some abstract truth of the universe that we all inherently intuitively understand, but it must be embodied. Cool. Lived through that already. But it's possible that a person can lack grounding, right? They can lack the mental faculties necessary in order to withhold or withstand the experience and be able to integrate it. I misplayed that so bad. With that too. Dude, you feed your Teemo against Renekton, he still loses. Welcome to Plat, NA. On Kirken unit, I mean, unironically. ambush. Dude, they're celebrating before the game's even ended. If you're plat, it's because you celebrate the game before you've ended, not because you suck at the game. Though, you could argue that's a way of sucking at the game. Anyway, back to my discussion on Vipassana. So many things to say about it. Like, I can't contain it, a simple thought. Because so much shit happened in the span of 5 fucking days. Okay. At least mentally, you know. Wow, 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 wow. Dude, if Fury dogs get vision, I give up on telling the Vipassana story, to be honest. I overcommitted Minkai towards my team. That's fun. Hey, let me tell you about Vipassana now, since I have the opportunity. I don't know, man. I was going pretty deep in thought. Like, the modern mind can't be enlightened in the way that past minds have been, because past minds had limits to their society. Past minds, oh, we still do, but like their lives, their awareness, their capabilities were a lot more limited. That like inherently changes the landscape of the mind and its necessities, and you know the progression of development, of spiritual development. You can't like unironically seek enlightenment at the age of fucking, I don't know, whatever age I'm at, whatever age they're at. Like, I think in the modern age, unironically, you can unironically start considering enlightenment at the age of 60, but then you have to talk about, okay, how do you define enlightenment? I think I'm referring to enlightenment as it appeared experientially in the past. A sense of profound peace and alignment, a separation from suffering, because you become aware of everything you needed to become aware of. A detachment from all of your attachments. And you know, that's like pretty universal, that's pretty cohesive. Fuck. but it's not a functional definition in the modern age. Like, all you had to do to live life in the past was fucking farm your grains, butcher your cows, take care of your family, and maybe, like, play a couple sports, right? Civilization didn't really go all that deep. And, you know, over time it became more complex, yes, and since then there have been more advances. But, like, think about it unironically. There's so many beautiful things to experience in this lifetime that you could call attachments. And you're going to tell me that, like, unironically, it just... You're going to seek enlightenment at this age whenever you've barely even lived a life? Fuck that. And then the problem is, like, you're being taught by somebody who isn't fucking enlightened. What's the fucking point? Like, okay, you know, it's good to be taught things at the level that you're at. Like, if you're not a good teacher, you're not going to be able to teach a Silver League player how to play League. You're going to try to teach them at a challenger level, and maybe you'll get them there. Like, it's kind of like learning a cello piece, a solo, by brute forcing it instead of understanding the theory. You could certainly accomplish that. What is GA? I need GA. That sucks. I wish I knew gold efficiencies. Like, for example, there, like, I don't know gold efficiencies, and a challenger player, like, definitely knows that. I think I gotta write all this shit down instead, but I'm glad I'm verbalizing it so the world knows I'm a genius. and eventually, like, they'll catch on that I might be somewhat important. LeBlanc does that much damage to me. Fuck that. Fuck this game! Like, you kind of have to suck in a game. You have to suck in a very particular way to lose a melee bot lane. It doesn't matter. Fun fact, if you emulate challenger gameplay by emulating their inputs, the game will make you climb faster because it thinks that you're better. It doesn't, like, track how you use your camera, it just tracks if you use your camera. Okay, now that I'm not playing the game anymore. I'm not playing the game anymore, I think I can talk about the concepts. So let me try to structure a pyramid of thought from day 1 to day 5. Day 1, I arrive. My expectations are I'm coming from a high stimulation background. Actually, I gotta make a call first. Continuing. I come into this with a lot of knowledge, a lot of questions, a lot of curiosity, a lot of anxiety, a little bit of everything, but mostly knowledge and the desire to seek it out, to understand it more deeply, to collect more information, more intel, if you will, about spirituality in general, and how to translate that into something much, much, much more contemporary and pragmatic. Something for the contemporary modern mind. So many thoughts behind all of this, like at what point can I stop asking why? Is enlightenment a state of being where you are aligned, or is it a state of being where your output... Hold on, I gotta get my dog. Come here. Go place. Yeah. Place. Good girl. Thank you, lovely. Is enlightenment... What is, like... Okay, what is enlightenment exactly? Because then my question becomes, what does enlightenment look like in the modern age? Because to me it looks a lot more pragmatic. It looks like a superbly healthy mind and body. Like, almost excessively healthy to the point where everything that comes out of you is so precise and aligned that you could call that being closer to God. But there's so much superfluous discussion about it, and there's so much superficial discussion about it, and sometimes people just don't engage with it because, like, what's the point? It's like a fundamentally difficult concept to grasp, and people are living relatively fine without it. Like, you could argue that they're living through a form of enlightenment. And then, the questions between how enlightenment interacts with the concepts of, I guess, higher states of being in other religion, and how enlightenment is inherently a religious concept. But then you go into the definition. How do we define these things? What's the definition of enlightenment? What's the definition of religion? What's the definition of anything? And my point isn't like question everything to the point of insanity. It's how much of this reality do we understand, and how much of it do we fail to understand simply because of lack of engagement. Lack of engagement in all of its directions and dimensions, because, we don't know any better, we're satisfied enough, there's a bit of arrogance, we don't really understand our impulses, we're so much more than what we believe we are superficially. And, actually, to relate it to the concept at hand, there's my Vipassana experience kind of corroborates that. Like, do we really even know? And there's the call. So I believe this lecture is going to have to continue later. Questions about how we socialize, the fundamental assumptions that we make about literally anything and everything. So many fucking questions that I'm just completely unsatisfied with. The answers that have been provided. Especially because of a lot of my own personal experiences, my own grievances with life. I've been through a lot. At the age of 23, it's very strange to hear someone say that they've been through a lot, and it's a little difficult to take them seriously. But when you're born to be contemplative, I guess, and much more, you ask a lot of questions. Now, if I remember correctly, I was saying all of this to get the move on chronologically of Vipassana and all that stuff. But day one. I'm coming in here with all which I just have spewed out, and more. And I'm coming in with some expectations.
Rejoice at your redemption.
Like, since I'm aware of what meditation does, how it functions, scientifically speaking, where my brain is at scientifically, and what the habits imply, here. This one. Keep the blue streak going.
No time to waste.
I'm coming in here hoping that by non-reactively monitoring what goes on in my mind and body, that I am actually less sensitized by all the inputs that I receive on a day-to-day basis. Shit. I misclicked. That sucks. Keep the streak going, whatever. Stuck on the phone, stuck on the phone, stuck in the bed. Shaky interpersonal relationships. And those things being born from unmanifested talent, consequences of impulse, and, fuck I want. And the impact that forms of recreation one would assume are harmless, like video gaming, have ultimately shaped me. There was a lot of promise, there was a lot of potential. And I needed to experience it firsthand to, see, is this what it fundamentally sells itself to be? And or is my understanding complete enough to gain the benefit that I seek from it? Really, the answer was no. But I didn't come to that conclusion the first day. Because what happened during the first day actually gave me a lot of hope. One of the reasons I'm speaking out, or seeking out spirituality, and speaking out against contemporary spirituality, is because I am seeking a specific state. However, spirituality, especially its bastardization in modern times, separates itself from such states to seek a deeper, fundamental state which transcends the need or desire for any state. And not only do I covet this state, but I actually give it a lot of importance, because who wouldn't give importance to health? I think, especially during a time where we have so much information at our fingertips, that if the right, well-intentioned group of people just shook their minds together, just rub them together for like a week or something, and use the tools that we have, like AI or this or that, or whatever the fuck, that we would have some semblance of meaningful world peace. Like, regardless of what is going on in the world, if we just sat down and spoke on what our Gestalt definition of health is, then we'd already be living in a much better place. Like, without a doubt. And so, I'm seeking some type of way to actualize that. Humbly, arrogantly, however it comes. And I actually come upon this state in the first day. I normally have tinnitus. My thoughts are kind of quiet sometimes, kind of loud at other times. There's always this sense of slight dissociation. My senses feel staticky. And within the first 30 minutes of the first meditation, I felt the state. If y'all have ever done hypnagogic meditations, it actually feels very similar, except, you're awake. But with your eyes closed, it feels like you're in a dark room, all that pressure is gone, the tinnitus is gone. It's just you and your soul, let's say. A deep sense of clarity. And then I'm here being told that that's not the point of this. And I can't help but ask, then what the fuck is the point of this, if not to, so to speak, and I think this is important to conceptualize it this way, honor the body, the material, that God or the universe has given you, honoring God directly through an indirect means, which would be taking care of your temple, to an extent where the enlightened state is not conceptual or ambiguous, but something that people live in automatically, because that is a product of pristine health. Like, one of my beliefs coming into this is that enlightenment is a product of pristine health. One of many assumptions, one of many, I would think, actually, realizations. Because, okay, I know I'm going on a lot of tangents here, but think about what enlightenment is sold as. Think about what enlightenment is sold to you as. Or how it is explained you reach enlightenment. It is always through a deep understanding, a deep embodied understanding of literally anything. Oh, so you want to reach enlightenment? Okay, then become really, really good at your job. Advance in your career so thoroughly that you reach enlightenment. Because you make so many realizations, and then you realize how those realizations are connected to other realizations, and then you realize everything's interconnected and that everything is fundamentally peaceful. Same deal. Do it through contemplation, through studying philosophy, through the intellect. Same deal. Immerse yourself so deeply in this that you come with the realizations and peace. So you got career, you got intellectual root, the root of morality, by becoming such a kind-hearted person. Giving out so much kindness into the world that your sense of peace is so unshakably embodied that no matter what happens to you in life, your base state is permanent peace. And I'm pretty sure there's more roots or whatever the fuck, right?
Cool future armor at 100%.
I'm actually late to 7. I didn't even realize. What was I saying? So many paths to enlightenment. And yet, all those conceptions are unclear. The world is rife with so much suffering. And I just think that our working definition needs to change. It needs to be updated. And thus, this game actually has me thinking about a lot, because one of the things that I was thinking about during the retreat is how your conscious mind, the thinker, the ego, sometimes referred to as, but the one that speaks, the thinks, it does all the blabbering in the mind, actually has a fundamentally limited connection. Like sometimes, depending on your state of being, or your state of mental health, or this or that, or your spiritual state, it kind of becomes the tyrant. The thinker of the mind overpowers the rest of it. And I've actually come to realize its faults during the meditation in the past, and like during this game, because I'm doing things in this game that whenever I'm thinking about it too hard and identifying myself with the thinker, that I don't perform. The thinking is limited, because it's somewhat difficult to articulate, but your whole body and mind, let's call that the soul for now, creates its own actions. But parts of it can create its own actions if they become, overwhelming, if they become overpowered. I mean, that's the not the bane, the crux of all mental illness. That's the crux of all suffering, all this and that. But even saying something as seemingly obvious as that, it clearly, our concept of it, as it appears in that way, isn't doing anyone any favors, because it's like we're not going anywhere with it. Because if we did, I believe that if we really did embody that, believe that cross-culturally in the way that is universal and not a derivation of phenotype, a complex pyramidal reflection of phenotype, I'm hitting my metabolic limit right now. Holy shit.
Heavens descend.
Yeah, I've lost my train of thought. The fundamental realization just doesn't exist in our lives, in our society, very clearly, because the lives we live do not reflect that. Okay, but then, I could start on a tangent about how this lifetime, this earth, this plane of existence that we share with other souls and other people is kind of like a plane of existence where souls are cleansed, but at the same time they carry a karmic weight. And maybe this is all like just a big game to become God or become Satan or God of this world or become Jesus or whatever the fuck. Become something ontologically that transcends this plane of existence. And maybe it's done through an individual lifetime and it's kind of like a test, or you live in the same body and soul and gene composition, somewhat personality, throughout multiple lifetimes on a similar earth. But there's so many ways to go about this, and like, I don't think these things are arbitrary. I also don't think they're like insignificant, not pertinent to enlightenment, to our modern understanding. Like, I could go into a deep tangent about how different races have a different orientation towards life because of their fundamental like genetic construct, but that's a controversial thing. But like, is it controversial to say that, I don't know, white and Asian people on average in their populations engage more with philosophy on a like quotidian basis without even thinking about it? Like, I think, I don't remember the name for this woo-woo study. Or this ology or whatever the fuck.
Prepare to die.
But it concerned itself with like souls and ancestries and forms, a species of consciousness, and that we're on like the 6th level of consciousness, and that we're moving towards a more individualistic ones, and that different races are derived from different past spiritual races like Atlanteans or whatever the fuck, and like white people are like, their spirituality is not embodied. Black people's spirituality is embodied, but white people need to contemplate it through philosophy, through the intellect. Just so much fucking shit, right? To evaluate. And a lot of people are like, oh, this is useful. This isn't even like worth contemplating. Like, enlightened quote unquote teachers themselves say the same thing. Like, this is not even worth contemplating because the fundamental nature of, I don't know, man, enlightenment is so infallible that you don't need to contemplate all of this to be enlightened. Fuck that. That is not how the modern mind works. That is not how the modern soul works. Like, there's so much joy in a cup of boba. And there's people who can't have it because of diabetes. People can't have it because they're so anxious that they've functionally become diabetic or metabolically like compromised, or because a certain region of their brain has metabolically hogged all resources and down-tuned. Just so many fucking explanations for all this bullshit. And yet we can't come upon a conclusion. Oh, you're not supposed to have boba here, boba there. Like, but what if I want to have boba go like car racing with some friends and not spend like 8 hours in a fucking office and this and that and like have purpose and meaning in life? And you know, it's like it's easy to respond, okay, you're jobless and you don't know anything about the world. True, very true. But like, I mean, I'm not gonna call myself a victim of circumstance of my environment. I think I've been doing as best as I can within the context that I'm given and what I know and this and that. I've made my mistakes intentionally and unintentionally. But I don't think that detracts from the fact that
I will not let you fall.
there is so much more to enjoy even on a daily basis that we don't get to enjoy because the gap in schisms is too wide. Like, I spend so much time thinking about I need a replicator.
Solid giggle should do the trick.
I've got this space-time on lock.
I don't know, a whole bunch of useless shit. The limits of my metabolism are hitting right now, and all my bad habits are catching up to me, so I can't complete the thought. But it's honestly something that needs to be completed over time with a lot more care than I'm giving it now. I just wanted to yap, because one of the things that I realized during those meditations is that, dude, how fucking related to what I was just speaking about, how miserable do you have to be, how lost do you have to be to not like realize that all your impulses don't need to be conditioned towards ignoring it and finding peace, but rather just acting them out. But then comes like the question of morality. But like, is it moral to do this? Is it moral to do that? Is it like the moral panic? So much shit to address.